ora mai anō and welcome to another episode of The Verdict. I haere ake nei. Today we are talking about the NRL, the Warriors. Are they better than a mid-table team? And as the leaderboard starts to structure itself, who are the top contenders for the wooden spoon? Before we get into this, let me introduce to you our guests today. Goran Paladin first up.
Rav, great to be here as always. Thanks for having me back.
And our NRL Warriors extraordinaire, Adam Blair.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this one. Yeah, I'm just excited to talk rugby league. That's what I do these days, so it's fun.
Mate, I'm looking forward to
And then I get to sit next to you.
Oh,
mate,
stop it, jeez.
We have a little bit of a connection going with everything that we do together.
Right. This is a very different tone to weeks gone by on this show, all right.
I just love the journeys that we go on together, you know?
Yeah.
Like you start talking and then 5 minutes later I finally come to.
I've lost you, innit?
Like, where did we go there?
Oh, it's a bit like when we're on TV, mate. Man, wrap it up.
Yeah, come on, mate, just stop.
That's talking. So it's a bit similar to that, but anyway.
I feel like I'm going to burst the bubble just by giving the instructions of how this works.
Don't you dare talk about bursting bubbles. I'm loving the fact that we've got a Trans-Tasman bubble in place.
Oh, let's go.
In a couple of weeks.
Nice
Yeah, well, let's go.
Yep.
Yeah,
Nice.
take Warriors TV on the road.
Oh,
That'll be fun.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Digging it. All right, before we get into it, here's how it's going to go down. So I'll restate those topics again, and you will state what side of the fence you will be on quite briefly. Then we will get into your research and why you think your side of the argument is the right one. Ka pai?
Sure thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Cool.
So let's get into it. Topic number one, are the Warriors better than a mid-table team in the NRL right now, based on their current performances, obviously?
Okay, so mid-table, I think what we're saying there is 7 or 8, like that's mid-table. We're saying that they're going to make the playoffs. I believe that, yes, they are better than 7th or 8th position. I said before the season began on this very show with Adam alongside me that the Warriors were a possibility of finishing in the top 6. Mm-hmm. I still think that's the case.
Well, I guess I'm the other way then. 7 and 8, I think if I look at the table now, we've got the Melbourne Storm and the Sharks. It's hard to see the Warriors beating those guys, but I did say at the start of the year and when we done the show last time that they're going to be playing a grand final, so I have to try and find my argument.
Change your tune, mate.
Try and find my argument within my argument to try and get them to the top. So, yeah.
So
You don't see mid, you see top.
So, yeah, the question was, mid-table, are they better? Well, at the start of when we first did the verdict about where they're going to finish, I said they're going to be at the top. So I've got to try and find my way from a mid-table to the top somehow.
We are looking forward to this journey.
Yeah, this is going to be incredible. It's just like climbing Everest, for goodness sake. So,
It's a hard task. Mate, Everest, exactly. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually a tough task.
Sir Ed, right? Yeah.
They've got to sit down at altitude for a couple of weeks before they get to the top, you know what I mean? So they've got to do their preparation down the bottom first.
So hang on, you're saying they're a mid-table team, they're going to finish 7th or 8th, but they'll make their way to the grand final from 7th or 8th position?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, that they're going to be, you know, it hasn't been done before, but the Cowboys made an opportunity when they come from 8th to get into the grand final. You've still got to win the grand final, and no matter what happens in the competition, it's a new competition once the finals football comes around, and you never know, the Warriors could be there.
Yeah, Rav, I'm just pleased that we're still talking positively about the Warriors. We're not ruling them out of playoffs contention completely. I guess the structure of this conversation is that, yes, they will be in the mix. It's just about where they finish inside the 8. I reckon they're going to finish in the top 6 for the reason being that the draw is really favourable for them. And when I look at what they're doing over the next wee while, they've got matches against Manly, a couple of games against Manly in quick succession. And Manly they're hopeless at the moment. Without Tommy Turbo and no George Tafua on the wing, they look a little bit lost. So Manly a couple of times, they get the Cowboys a couple of times as well. They are, I mean, you know Todd Payton after a couple of years at the Warriors, and he's doing it tough up there in North Queensland, but there's no sign of life in them anytime soon. So there's another couple of wins. And when you look at the season as a whole, 2 matches against Manly, 2 matches against the Cowboys, 2 against the Tigers, and I still think they've got defensive issues, the Tigers, even though Michael Maguire's trying to fix them. They've got a match against the Bulldogs who can't score points. They've got a match against the Broncos who, under Kevy Walters, I still don't know if he can coach or not. So there are 16 points right there, and they're on 4 at the moment.
Guaranteed 16 points.
Guaranteed 16 points.
Jeez.
Yep. Put them in the back pocket, mate. They're assured. So 16 points on top of the 4 they've already got. And when you look at the recent history of the NRL and what it takes to make the top 6, I think the cutoff is about 30 or 32 competition points. And so,
32.
Yeah.
I don't think the Warriors have had 32 in a long time, but yep, that's...
Didn't they have 32 in 2018?
They gave us 8th.
Yeah, but it was 2 points off top as well.
Yeah, but it still gave us 8th. You're not at the top. You still got to work your butt off to get to the top.
Okay.
So 32 gave us 8th position. Yes, I remember that quite clearly.
It was a really tight competition that year.
Yeah, but you can see how the competition's
Another
going
win
this
would
year.
have put them top, for goodness sake.
Points for and against. No, it wouldn't have. It wouldn't have points for and against. Goran, you got to look at the table and the points for and against. You can't just look at the total points. Okay. Anyways, sorry, I just cut.
No, that's fine. And all of a sudden, a match against the Panthers or the Raiders looks so much easier than what it would on the Central Coast, because that's where they're playing those late season games. They've got to play the Rabbitohs away, which will be difficult, but at Mount Smart Stadium, that is a huge equaliser for a Panthers side and possibly a Raiders side that'll be flying high at that point.
Nice.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, very supportive here on the verdict.
That's exciting for the Warriors if they can play, what is it, 5th or 6th? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
5th or 6th. All right. Yeah. So, they're not going to be 5th or 6th if there's a position on the table. And I said from the start they're going to play grand final. So 7th and 8th is going to be their position. At the moment, the table, from 5th to 6th, it's Raiders, Dragons, Storm, Sharks. Yes, they've been a depleted Raiders side with 14 men. The Storm, they haven't played the Storm yet. This is a massive call. I don't think the Storm's going to be there.
Wow.
I don't think the Storm's going to be there.
In the 8?
Nah.
They're going to drop out of the 8 entirely.
I'm going to put them at 9th.
They've still got Harry Grant to come back.
Yeah. There's no Cameron Smith. Yeah. So yeah, my argument is...
They've got Pappenhausen, they've got Cameron Munster.
We'll look at, these, the Warriors...
That's the next big three, isn't it?
Warriors, the Knights and the Titans are fighting for the 8th spot, I think. They're fighting for the 8th spot. So someone's got to fall out of there, whether the Storm goes forward or they fall out, or the Sharks fall out and the Dragons fall out, and 2 people go through. I think the Knights, once they get all their players back, are pushing for that same spot. So there's 3 teams, I think, outside the 8 that can push for 1 spot. 1 spot only. I think that the top 5 teams move between each other throughout the rest of the season.
Okay.
And then you've got your Dragons, Storm and Sharks, 6, 7, 8. You need 2 of them to move out for us to be a chance of getting into the 6th position. So for me, it's 8th. That's where they're going to end up.
But then go on to play in a grand final.
You go on and play in the grand final and give it a shake. That's my argument, is that I don't see too much more movement from the teams there, besides maybe, 1 if we're lucky.
I mean, the mitigating factor in all of this is injuries.
Yep.
And we've spoken about it already. When a team gets, the rough end of the pineapple on game day, and they lose 2, 3, 4 players, all of a sudden, we've seen it in the past, they just can't go with a team that has a full complement, or maybe they've only got 1 injury. Like the Broncos are up 16-0, they lose 3 players, Parramatta come back to win. Another Eels game against the Sharks. Sharks had nobody left on the bench, and they beat them by, 28 points to 4. And the Knights game at the weekend and the Dragons. The Knights, I think they held the upper hand, and then bang, 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 they lose all their playmakers. What happens? The Dragons win. So that's something else that, I guess we can't really foresee what happens in which round and which game, but that could either help or hinder the Warriors at some point throughout the rest of the year.
Well, yeah, I just don't see, these 4 teams, Panthers, Eels, Roosters, Rabbitohs, are too strong. Yeah. No matter if they lose players, they're still going to be too strong up there, and I just don't see them moving too far. Raiders the same, when we've seen that when they beat the Warriors, down, 1 man on the bench, and still managed to nearly win that game on the bell. So it shows you how strong the top teams are compared to the bottom teams, and the development that they have through their players to be consistent, even though they are missing players, and their pathways that are bringing through are strong kids that are making the team even better. And they know what their jobs are, they know what their roles are, they just go out there and do it. And then you mentioned about, I guess, travelling home and for me, when I think about the travel, I think about routine, I think about being settled. It's going to take them, and yes, it'd be nice to come home and play against those two quality teams and try and put our kickstart our season again for the back end of the season, but it's a disruption to where they've been already, to be able to come home and try and get back into routine as quick as they can, because a lot changes in a week, and you've got to travel all back over here. You've got to be settled. You know, your family, everyone's excited around you. So for kids, it's hard to be able to stay focused and being in the moment. And it's a lot easier. Well, it's a lot easier. It's not easier, but when you're a little bit older and you can focus on what the purpose of what you're doing. So, you know, you come home, you get yourself straight into routine. Kids, they're excited. They're back home, they see their friends, they go and run around, enjoy those things, and forget about, you know, why they're doing what they're doing, because, you know, it's hard as a kid to be able to be focused on rugby league 24/7 because of a lot of distraction on the outside. And there'd be a lot of talk from us talking about, you know, them being home. And yes, they say they don't listen to media, but at the end of the day, they do. You can't avoid it because it's everywhere you go, and it's everywhere you see. It's everyone you're talking to. It's your family that talks to you. Facebook's out there, social media, Instagram's out there, and people are tagging everyone. So you're seeing all those things. So that becomes a distraction. Travel, again, you come home, you play 2 games. Hopefully they win those 2 games, but then they've got to pack up and go again and go back to where they just come from. I just don't think that helps their season towards getting to the top 5 or the 5th or 6th.
You'd actually forego the last 10 weeks at home, you know, like, well, they're not going to play every game at home, but you would actually prefer them to say we're going to stay for the remainder of the season. Yeah,
well, they play 2 games here, 2 games away, and they do that for the rest of the, depending on where if they're fighting for, you know, a 5th and 6th where you think they're going to be, or an 8th, 7th or 8th, then it's going to be crucial to where they end up. It's going to be crucial to where they end up. The less distraction, the better. Rugby league players, they like it nice and simple. They like to see what's in front of them. You keep moving them around. You get them out of routine. You know, they're back and forwards travelling. I know how hard that is, but it's easier when you're a bit older because you understand what the purpose is. A lot of kids are travelling back and forwards. Yes, it's easy because they're kids and they don't need as much work put into them as in recovery-wise, but it does reflect back on performances. It does reflect back on trainings because you're in and out of hotels, you're travelling in and out of airports, and that's a big part in their season is being able to, or coming home is going to be a big part of their season, but if they get to stay over there, I just think it's a lot more settled. They can see the end through locking themselves in for the year, and then let's just start again in 2022 and just kick it off here, first home game here in New Zealand where everyone can get behind it. The disruption for me would be a big key to where they end up. If they can keep that as settled and simplify it as, you know, real simple as they can, then it helps everyone. It just, your mind doesn't wander, your mind is focused on the job at hand, and you go out there and just get your jobs done week in, week out. And once the competition gets to the pointy end of the season, you need that even more. You need that even more. You need routine, you need to be focused, you need to know what's happening around you. You need to see the schedule week in, week out. You need to see it daily. A lot of us football players go day by day, live in the moment because we're so routine-like. That's how it works. You know what's happening on Monday. You know what's happening on Tuesday, and I think that's important when they're over in Australia. You get back here, your Mondays, Tuesday are so much different to your Monday, Tuesday in Australia, because then you fly home on a Sunday, play a game, your Monday is off, you don't get home here till 7:30 at night, well, back to your family till 7:30 at night, your Monday is a day off, then you're coming in on a Tuesday to try and get as much work as you can in before you fly again, say, a Wednesday, and it's hard, So
I don't doubt that for a second.
Yeah. So that's my big reason why I just think that, yes, they stay over there, but the position on the table is you know, would love them to be in the 8, 7 or 8. again, I'd take you on a
take you
on a nice journey of just an experience journey.
I think I blacked out. Probably about 2 minutes there.
Was it the flight?
Time.
It's just first-hand experience. That's all it is.
Flying.
Well said, mate. Well said. I mean, there's not much more that I can say to it, to be honest, because, like, I haven't been there and done it.
That's how I think I win this, because of my experience and understanding.
Did you play 15 years in the NRL?
That's how
331 first grade games? Oh my God.
That's how I think
So you're at the Melbourne Storm, the Tigers, the Broncos and the Warriors.
That's where I think I get my upper hand when it comes to rugby league.
Turn the lights off, we're done here.
And there were like 51 tests.
I can't drop the mic, but anyway, I can't drop the mic because it makes a noise. But I just think that's, when we're talking about rugby league, that's where I think my experience and my knowledge of the game comes into play.
Yeah, but you've got to remember that I'm going to be playing fullback for our team. So
yeah, it's a long way off.
Yeah.
So so that's where I think it is going to end up.
Okay, guys. Well, I can't argue with that, Adam. Giving you the point. No explanation needed.
All right, so we're looking forward to 7th or 8th for the Warriors this year. Okay,
well, in talking about the top of the table and shooting to the top in your rocket, let's now have a look at the bottom end of the table. We've mentioned a couple of these teams already, but who do you think are early contenders for the wooden spoon? Because that table is starting to separate.
Who do you reckon?
Oh, I'm going to have to say the Bulldogs for me. I think they're... to be honest, I don't think they're up to scratch with, NRL competition. I just don't think, for me, when I look across their team, and when you, again, if you're a player and you're going to a club, you're looking for, strike on your field, and I don't see strike anywhere on the Rooster or the Bulldogs team. I just don't see it.
I agree, but I think there's a team that's worse than the Bulldogs.
We could be playing off for it anyway.
It's the Cowboys. The North Queensland Cowboys will get the wooden spoon this year. I can see it already 4 rounds in. I really feel for Todd Payten. He went there, he used to play for the Cowboys as well. He thought, well, I'll go back there and help these guys out. But they're not helping themselves. Geez, there's just no heart. And whenever you see the shots of them in the sheds at the end of the game, they just look so despondent. Peyton's sitting there, hands in pockets, just trying to get the guys to talk up. And it seems like nobody wants to speak. He's got one hell of a job on his hands. And that's why I think the Cowmen are going to edge the Dogs for that spoon.
Yeah. Well, they are pretty much close to each other. I think minus 105. Minus 106. So you do the math. So they're very similar. I don't know if I'm talking about the Dogs. I just can't see them moving from
they haven't scored a point in 3 games.
Yeah. Well, 3 games they haven't scored.
Ridiculous.
They haven't scored a point in 3 games. They're coming 15th. And for me, I guess why they are the way they are, and this is not anything to do with the club or anything, but it's and the coach, because the coach has been given this team from another coach. He's bought Nick Kotrick
and put him in the centres. And he's bought the half from the Roosters. Flanagan from the Roosters. And he's got the fill-in fullback from the Rabbitohs, Corey Allen.
But the reason behind those guys that they fit. Why they played well is that they're in a good team structure and environment where they can excel at what they do. You take yourself, this is where I relate back to rugby league, like myself included, you take yourself out of a structured team or a good culture, you put yourself in a team where it's nothing like it.
Storm to the Tigers.
Yeah, and you stick out like dog's balls. And what you did at your previous club, you try and do it the club that you're going to, it doesn't work because either they're, a fair way behind you, or you're on another level compared to them. So you have to bring your level down to their standards, and what they're dishing up isn't class, isn't NRL standard. I just think you could get a New South Wales Cup team to have a crack and see how they go, and then. I know that's pretty harsh, but I just don't see that. It comes down to obviously your roster. Your roster is the most important. You can tell the difference between the top teams and the bottom teams with rosters. and you can go through them. And you know, if we look at the Manly team, the Trbojevic brothers, literally, you know, they've got Kieran back, but without Tom Trbojevic, Kieran can't do what he does because it limits his options. You know, so those guys, the Tigers, like.
Surely it's just a matter of time before things tend to click for the Bulldogs. They're not going to climb their way up the ladder that high. You know, I think there are 4 or 5 teams that are sort of they're away from the rest. You know, like it's Bulldogs, Cowboys, Tigers, Manly Seagulls, and who's the one that I haven't mentioned? You've got the ladder there.
No, that's the 11th.
Ah,
that's where we sit, mate.
There are 5. There are 5 that are just a little bit off the pace, but. Yeah, Bulldogs. I reckon Cowboys. The Bulldogs. I reckon they've got quality individuals.
Yep.
And at some point they will click and they will get the odd win off the lesser lights, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I just can't see it happening for the Cowboys. Cowboys. I mean, geez, you played up against them in a grand final a number of years ago, and in that squad.
Thurston.
Yep. Thurston. Was Matt Scott
just
there?
Thurston.
Just Thurston.
No, that's why I mentioned Thurston. I didn't mention Matt Scott. I just said Thurston.
But they had decent players, you know, and Thurston's sort of it was left-hand man, Gavin Cooper.
Yeah.
You know, he's no longer there. He's retired at the end of last season.
Thurston, mate.
Yeah.
Gavin Cooper made a living outside.
But like,
but like myself when I had Cooper Cronk into Melbourne, like I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to do anything. You know, just pass me the ball and I'll do my best.
But like Drinkwater and Hampton aren't Thurston and Morgan.
No.
And you know, the other day when they were playing the Sharks, the attack's going sideways. Most attacks ended up over the sideline. There's just like they're rudderless. And you know, one of their most experienced players in Josh Maguire, who's played rep footy for a number of years, and then all of a sudden he doesn't want to hang around. He doesn't want to dig in. He wants away. And they're talking about him going to the Dragons, and you know, all the former Broncos are sort of winding up in red and white down there. I'm sure it's about to happen. Like, why don't you want to stay and fight and help this team that's bereft of experience and bereft of direction?
Well, I guess when you come from. Yeah, I guess when he was at the Broncos, they were doing pretty well for his standard, and that gives confidence in the players around you. And he's come out and even said that, you know, they have a soft underbelly, which means that when times get tough, they go missing.
Yeah,
simple as that. So he's a competitive person that wants to see them competing for everything. And if he's come out and said they've got a soft underbelly, it means that when you go out and put pressure on someone, you're expecting your teammate to help you if he steps you back on the inside or the outside, but he turns around and there's no one there. And that's parcel of a team. Like, you can have these individuals, these brilliant individuals, but you can't play without the team. And if we're not defending as one team, or we don't have to all have a similar attitude, then you stick out like dog's balls and you can't compete with the best teams. You come up against the quality sides, you are nothing to those teams, because they'll find you straight away and pick on you. And you know, the score lines are pretty much shown for the last few games for both Dogs and the Cowboys.
I have to go with Adam again on this with Bulldogs. Something resonated with me when he said that there is somewhat of a spark there with the Cowboys, and I can also see Todd Payten is like, I don't know if it's warning bells or what, but he is trying to do everything he can right now to, you know, to do something about this problem. Even was there a headline I saw that he was looking to another coach for assistance as well? Was that him?
May have been Des Hasler with Paul Green.
Was it?
May have been, yeah.
Well, it's important. It's important if you're struggling to have a different voice and
another
voice.
Set of eyes and another.
That's coached at the highest level.
Yeah, that's right. So I think in that instance, there's a margin of hope, and I think if the Cowboys went against the Bulldogs today, that the Cowboys would win, hands down.
All right, well, 2-0. Got my ass handed to me on a plate. But that's okay, because I like you, Adam.
We're going to see each other again soon anyway.
Don't we have Warriors TV tomorrow? And we've got game day on Friday.
That's the fun part. It's the fun part.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, thank you so much. Again, so much wisdom. I feel educated today about the game of rugby league and all those contributing factors that make for a great, successful team. So thank you for that.
Oh, good.
And as for Goran and I, as always, we will be back here next week putting everything in sport on trial. Hei ko nā mai.